I'm here with Rick Mullins. He's a candidate for the 38th District Virginia Senate. Rick, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Well, Adam, I attended Clintwood High School, graduated Clintwood High School in 1980, and served my apprenticeship over in one of the local funeral homes in Clintwood, and went to Mortuary College in downtown Atlanta. I graduated from down there, came back to Clintwood, and went to MCV and took the eye nucleation courses out there. Came back and started a healthcare business. Started an ambulance service, and we grew those all over Southwest Virginia. And then we, in 1984, Junior Shinner and I opened a medical equipment corporation. That was in 1984, and we've been in business for over 30 years now. So one of the things that we also did in 1990, we opened a funeral home to serve the people in Dickinson County in 1990, and we've operated all those businesses since then.
Okay. Your platform differs a little bit from your two competitors. Give us a general overview of where you stand on the various hot button issues.
One of the things I like to do, Adam, is when we talk about one of the things that I support 100% is Medicaid expansion. And one of the things, there's some really a lot of strong validity to the reasons that I support Medicaid expansion. Being in the healthcare sector and in that business, dealing with hospitals, physicians' offices, and nursing homes, I see an element of healthcare that the other candidates don't see. I understand healthcare like maybe some of the other candidates don't understand. So what I like to do is I like to use the analogy of taking your 19-year-old child or a 49-year-old single mother who's working at a convenience store or working in the tourism business and making $9, $10, $11 an hour. Well, that individual's working and paying payroll taxes every day. And what happens, Adam, is if that person has a heart attack tonight and they can't afford to buy a healthcare policy with their limited income. So what happens is, if they get taken down to the local hospital, that single mother or that 19-year-old college student, they can't afford to pay the hospital. So then they have to be transported out to one of the trauma units, and they call the ambulance or the helicopter, and they can't afford to pay either the helicopter or the ambulance service. Then what happens when they get to the receiving hospital? They can't afford to pay the receiving hospital. So what happens when that patient gets stabilized and surgery is done, and they come back out of the hospital, they go home riddled in debt and facing bankruptcy, and none of the healthcare providers get paid. Under Medicaid expansion, those individuals they would have health care coverage. All the hospitals would get paid. The health care providers would get paid. And it's a win-win situation that's not going to cost the state of Virginia anything. In essence, it's actually going to save money to the state of Virginia.
All right. Well, if elected, Rick, do you have a general plan in mind as far as economic development for the 38th district as a whole? Well,
I do. And one of the things, Adam, we talk about all those hospitals with all those people who've laid off or do not have Medicaid expansion. That would pump millions and millions of dollars into localities, into those hospitals that could stabilize those hospitals. As we know, those hospitals were promised Medicaid expansion, and they got that sequester from Medicare and got all those cuts. Every healthcare provider, including ambulance services, durable medical equipment, hospitals, all received cuts from the federal government. And the federal government said, hey, look, if we're allowed to cut you over here, you're going to get Medicaid expansion and get this money back. However, the states that's blocked Medicaid expansion has none of those proceeds back. And what I did, Adam, is one of the things to bolster this Medicaid expansion, I wanted to talk to all the healthcare providers, because I think, as being a candidate, that I need to know where they stand. So what I did, and I have a file, I called every single hospital in the 38th district except two. And every hospital supports Medicaid expansion because of those revenues and coverage for those patients. Some of these hospitals are looking toward closure. If our hospitals close in our localities lose, and we can't ever attract any industry. So I don't think that I could be an individual who would go against those hospitals as an elected representative. I need to support what those localities need, and every one of those hospitals support Medicaid expansion. And I don't see how any elected official could go in opposition to every single one of those hospitals.
And obviously, both of your opponents in this election, Himes and Chafin, are against Medicaid expansion.
That's correct, Dave.
So that's one of the big points that you stand out on as far as differentiating.
And you know, they're good guys. They work. They've got good families. They work hard. They pay taxes. I just simply don't think they understand how important this Medicaid expansion issue is. And you know, and you know, it's really not part of Obamacare. Obamacare is a completely separate issue than expanded Medicaid. For example, the people in Massachusetts love Mitt Romney. You know what Mitt Romney did, Adam? He expanded Medicaid. It's the same program. It's almost a mirror image of Medicaid expansion in Virginia. And people up there now have coverage in Massachusetts, and they love Mitt Romney for it.
So do you think your opponent's opposition to the Medicaid expansion could possibly be politically driven just because of the general public's perception of Obamacare and Medicaid expansion being so intertwined?
You know, Adam, I've never been the type of individual that wants to make an accusation. So what I would like to do in front of a press or in front of a TV station to be able to sit down with Mike Himes and Ben Chafin and discuss Medicaid expansion, because that's one of the most important issues. And that way we can all see why and where each person stood on those issues.
So you would be open to a public debate?
I would
with you three over
I
the
would
issue?
Be, yes.
Okay. As far as the other issues go, are you a supporter of the coal industry?
I am, Adam, and one of the things that really the reason that I got into this race is there was two reasons. About 9 years ago, my wife and I get AARP magazine, and in that magazine, I've always been a big fan of Lee Iacocca's, and Lee Iacocca had written an article in that magazine, and it said that we must fix American healthcare. American healthcare is too expensive and it's destroying our global edge, our global competition. What happened was, when we bailed out Chrysler, and I didn't know this until I read this article, but Lee Iacocca took Chrysler's manufacturing plant across the border into Canada and manufactured all the cars in Canada because the Canadian government paid for the health insurance expense on the employees. That saved $2,000 to $2,500 per car, and then they imported the cars back into the U.S. and sold them to us. So in essence, what we did is we invested in Chrysler to go out of the country because our health care was too expensive to manufacture cars, and we lost all those good paying jobs. So if we would fix our healthcare system in America, you know, it's hard to say where we could go. We could be so much more globally competitive. A lot of companies would come home.
Another hot button issue that's been in the press recently with your opponents, Himes and Chafin, has been gun rights. Where do you stand on gun rights in general?
You know, Adam, one of the things, we'll go back to healthcare and then we'll lead into gun rights. Before I was born, my father was working in a non-union coal mine in Trammell, Virginia, a little place called Roaring Fork. He was in a terrible mining accident and ended up in a wheelchair the rest of his life. So all of us kids, you know, our family drew nearly $700 a month. There was 5 of us. We grew up on a hillside farm back in Dickinson County without any health insurance. So I know what that's like to grow up without any health insurance. So, you know, a lot of us couldn't go to the doctors. If we did go to the doctors were kind enough most of them would write it off because they knew we couldn't afford to pay for it. So one of those things growing up on that hillside farm back there taught us was how to hunt and how to trap. And I know Otto Kendrick in Dickinson County as a young boy taught me how to trap. And you know, that's one of the ways that we bought our school clothes, that we lived, we gardened, and you know, we supplemented the tables with game. And so I'm an avid supporter of our Second Right Amendments. I mean, it's the Constitution, and I'm a firm believer in that. I don't think we need to be touching those issues.
Okay. All right, Rick. If you could tell the voters one thing, why it's so important for them to vote for you rather than your two opponents in this election, what is it about you that really stands out that you would really help the 38th district more than the other two guys?
You know, Adam, economic vision and diversification has such a realm in the 38th district. Since 1978, we've lost 38,000 people. Those are kids that we've educated that had to leave the area, like you had, to find jobs. And one of the things that I see, sometimes your disadvantage can become your advantage. We need to explore every single avenue and think outside the box. We need to use rural development money in thinking outside the box. One of the things I think that the 38th district has that's so important is all the beauty that we possess, the streams, the lakes, low taxes, low cost of living. And one of the places I would like to point out to that started years ago is the Villages in Florida. Today, it's the largest retirement center in the United States, and there is 56,000 active golf carts in the villages down there. There's about 85,000 retirees who live mostly the winters down there. And what happens is Asheville, North Carolina has been very instrumental in attracting a lot of those Floridians, what they call halfbacks, back into Asheville because they got the beauty in the mountains. But house prices, real estate prices are very expensive in Asheville. Also, the taxes are very expensive in Asheville. If we could economically diversify and create a transition to Tazewell County, to Dickinson County, to Buchanan County, we have the mountains, we have all the infrastructure already in place. Can you imagine? Most of those are retirees from a lot of the northern companies that have good insurance benefits, good retirement benefits. So they're looking for a peaceful, cool place in the summertime and a place to go back to in the wintertime. So we need to capitalize on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rick Mullins, independent candidate for the 38th District Senate. Good luck.
Thank you. And one of the other things I would like to mention, Adam, is what I think is so important in the state of Virginia, more so than ever before, is I'm the only candidate who's supporting the election of judges in the Commonwealth. I think the time's come that we need to allow the people to choose the judges, not to appoint the judges.
Okay.